He was stressed. How he loosened his tie the moment he came home, as though the professional armor was suffocating. The rare genuine smiles that appeared when she made him laugh. She learned he played piano beautifully. One night, she heard music drifting through the penthouse and found him in the music room she hadn't known existed, his fingers dancing over keys with practiced grace. "I didn't know you played," Isabella said from the doorway. Alexander's hand stilled. "My mother taught me. Before she died." It was the first truly personal thing he'd shared with her. "How old were you when she passed?" 12. Alexander's voice was quiet. "Car accident. After that, my father buried himself in work, and my grandfather tried to fill the gap. He wasn't warm, but he was there." Isabella walked into the room and sat on the bench beside him. "Play something for me?" Alexander looked at her for a long moment, something vulnerable flickering in his blue eyes. Then his hands returned to the keys, and he played something beautiful and sad that made Isabella's throat tight with emotion. When the last note faded, they sat in silence. Their shoulders were touching, and neither moved away. "Thank you for sharing that," Isabella whispered. "Thank you for asking," Alexander replied. That night marked a shift. After that, they talked more. Real conversations about their lives, their fears, their dreams. They watched movies together in the home theater, arguing over whether action films or comedies were superior. They cooked together sometimes, even though they had a chef, because Isabella liked cooking and Alexander admitted he found it relaxing. They became friends. And that's when things got complicated. "Very hard. Last night at dinner, you laughed at my jokes." "You're occasionally funny," Isabella admitted. "Only occasionally?" Alexander stood, a hint of amusement in his eyes. "I'll have to work on that." 1 hour, Isabella. "Dress comfortably. The stylist will change you multiple times." After he left, Isabella sat holding her coffee, staring out at the city view. What was happening to her? Last night, she'd actually enjoyed Alexander's company. This morning, when he walked into her room, her heart had beat faster. This was dangerous. This was exactly what she couldn't let happen. Alexander had been clear, this was business. In 1 year, they would divorce, and she would walk away with her money and her pride restored. Falling for him was not part of the plan. Isabella needed to remember that. No matter how charming he seemed, no matter how perfect he acted, it was all fake. All of it. Living in close quarters. Days turned into weeks, and Isabella discovered that living with Alexander Stone was nothing like she'd expected. He wasn't cold or distant. Instead, he was thoughtful in small ways that surprised her. He remembered she liked her coffee with cream and no sugar. He noticed when she was tired and suggested they skip social events. He asked about her day every evening over dinner. They developed routines. Breakfast together before Alexander left for work. Dinner together most nights, either at home with food from Alexander's private chef or at restaurants where they maintained their public image. Weekends involved charity events, gallery openings, or business dinners. In public, Alexander was the perfect husband. He held her hand, kissed her cheek, looked at her with adoring eyes. But in private, in the penthouse, he maintained careful distance. Separate bedrooms. Separate lives. Except the distance started feeling less comfortable and more frustrating. Isabella found herself noticing things about Alexander she shouldn't. The way he ran his hand through his hair. Iona Iyer Alexander Stone married. Wife is marketing executive Isabella Martinez, formerly engaged to Marcus Thornton. Sources say the couple fell in love at first sight and eloped yesterday. #billionaire romance #Cinderella story. Isabella scrolled through hundreds of comments. Most were supportive and excited. But scattered through were comments from people she knew. Marcus Thornton, congratulations, Isabella. I hope you'll be very happy. The comment seemed innocent, but Isabella could read the bitterness between the lines. Vanessa Martinez, so happy for my sister. Family is forever. Isabella nearly threw her phone across the room at the hypocrisy. There was a knock on her bedroom door. Come in, she called. Alexander entered, already dressed in another perfect suit, holding 2 cups of coffee. I thought you might need this, he said, handing her one. Have you seen social media? Isabella asked. I've seen it. My PR team made sure the photos from last night circulated widely. Alexander sat on the edge of her bed, seeming completely comfortable despite the intimacy of being in her bedroom while she wore pajamas. How do you feel? Vindicated, Isabella admitted. Is that terrible? It's human. Alexander sipped his coffee. The stylist will be here in an hour. After that, we have a photo shoot. Photo shoot? For our announcement in the society pages. We need official wedding photos. But we didn't have a wedding, Isabella protested. Just City Hall. The public doesn't know that. As far as they're concerned, we had a small, intimate ceremony with just close friends. Alexander's expression softened slightly. Isabella, I know this is overwhelming. But it gets easier. In a few days, this will feel normal. Living with a stranger who I'm pretending to love will feel normal? Isabella raised an eyebrow. I'm not a stranger anymore. I'm your husband. The way Alexander said husband made something flutter in Isabella's chest. And you're not pretending the tone that made it sound like an insult. Isabella has a gift for connecting with people, Alexander said, reaching over to take Isabella's hand on the table. His fingers laced through hers, warm and strong. She sees the good in everyone. It's one of the things I love most about her. The word love spoken in Alexander's deep voice made Isabella's heart skip. She reminded herself it was fake. All fake. Throughout dinner, Alexander played his part flawlessly. He touched Isabella constantly, a hand on her back, fingers brushing her arm, his knee pressed against hers under the table. He looked at her with heated gazes that made her blush genuinely. He laughed at her jokes and asked her opinion on business matters, treating her like an equal partner. Isabella found herself relaxing, even enjoying the evening. When she told a story about a marketing campaign gone hilariously wrong, all 3 dinner companions laughed, and Michael said, "She's delightful, Alexander. You're a lucky man." "Don't I know it," Alexander replied, his eyes on Isabella with an expression that looked almost real. After dinner, as they drove home, Isabella said, "You're a good actor." "So are you." Alexander loosened his tie. "Michael Hartman is now convinced our marriage is genuine. He'll spread the word through business circles. By tomorrow, everyone will have heard. Including Marcus and Vanessa," Isabella said quietly. "Including them." Alexander glanced at her. "Are you ready for that?" "More than ready." The announcement. The next morning, Isabella woke to her phone exploding with notifications. She grabbed it from the nightstand, still half asleep, and opened her social media. The first thing she saw was a photo of herself and Alexander from last night, walking into Lou Bernardine. Alexander's arm was around her waist, pulling her close, and they were both laughing at something. They looked like a couple madly in love. The caption, from a popular celebrity gossip account, read, "Breaking, Bill. In love. We met at a charity gala 3 months ago and knew immediately we were meant to be together. The connection was so strong we couldn't wait to get married. So we're Romeo and Juliet," Isabella said dryly. Alexander smiled, a real smile that transformed his usually serious face. "Exactly. Minus the family drama and poison." He left her alone to get ready. Isabella stood in her new bedroom, surrounded by luxury she'd never imagined having, wearing a ring that cost more than she used to make in a year, and wondered what she had gotten herself into. The performance begins. Dinner was at Lou Bernardine, one of the most exclusive restaurants in the city. Isabella wore a black cocktail dress she'd owned for years, her best piece, though it looked shabby compared to the designer gowns on the other women in the restaurant. Alexander noticed her discomfort. As they walked to their table, he leaned down and whispered in her ear, "You're the most beautiful woman here. Don't doubt it for a second." The warmth of his breath on her ear sent shivers down her spine. Isabella reminded herself this was part of the act. Alexander was playing his role perfectly. Michael Hartman and his wife Jennifer were already seated when they arrived. Michael was a portly man in his 60s with calculating eyes. Jennifer was younger, probably 40, with surgically enhanced features and cold elegance. "Alexander. Congratulations on your marriage." Michael stood to shake hands. "When I heard the news this afternoon, I couldn't believe it. You always swore you'd never marry." "I had never met Isabella," Alexander said smoothly, pulling out Isabella's chair with perfect gentleman manners. "She changed everything." Jennifer's eyes raked over Isabella, clearly assessing and finding her wanting. "How did you two meet?" Isabella remembered the cover story. "At the Children's Hospital Charity Gala 3 months ago. I volunteer with their marketing department." "How charitable," Jennifer said in a. "Welcome to your new life." The penthouse occupied the entire top floor of Stone Tower, Alexander's personal building in the heart of the city. When Isabella stepped off the private elevator, her breath caught in her throat. Floor-to-ceiling windows wrapped around the entire space, offering 360-degree views of the city below. The interior was decorated in sophisticated neutrals, cream, gray, black, with splashes of deep blue and silver. Modern art hung on the walls, pieces Isabella recognized from auction catalogs as worth millions each. "This is your home now," Alexander said, setting down her 2 modest suitcases. Everything she owned fit in 2 bags. It seemed pathetic in this space that was larger than most houses. "It's beautiful," Isabella whispered. "I'll give you the tour." Alexander walked her through the space, pointing out the gourmet kitchen with professional appliances, the home theater, the library filled with first-edition books, the gym with equipment that looked space-age, and finally, the bedrooms. "This is my room," Alexander said, opening a door to reveal a massive space dominated by a king-sized bed with a view of the skyline. "And this," he walked to the next door, "is yours." Isabella's bedroom was equally large, decorated in soft whites and pale blues. A huge bed faced windows overlooking Central Park. An entire wall was dedicated to closet space. "Tomorrow, a stylist will come to fill your closet," Alexander said. "As my wife, you'll need an appropriate wardrobe for the events we'll attend." "I can buy my own clothes," Isabella protested. "Not the kind you'll need. Trust me on this." Alexander checked his watch. "We have dinner in 2 hours with the CEO of Hartman Technologies and his wife. They're important business associates. This will be your first public appearance as my wife." Isabella's stomach clenched with nerves. "What do I say? How do I act?" "Be yourself. You're intelligent and charming. Just remember, we're madly." "I know everything, remember?" Alexander's lips quirked in a small smile. "We're getting married this afternoon. City Hall, 2 p.m. Wear whatever you want. Afterwards, we'll go to dinner and I'll introduce you to some associates. Tomorrow, we announce our marriage to the press." "This afternoon?" Isabella's voice rose. "That's in 4 hours. Is that a problem?" Isabella looked down at the ring sparkling on her finger. At the contract bearing both their signatures. At the life she was stepping into without any preparation. "No," she said finally. "No problem at all. The wedding that wasn't." At exactly 2 p.m., Isabella stood in a private room at City Hall wearing a simple cream-colored dress she'd bought that morning. Alexander stood beside her in his immaculate suit, looking calm and collected as always. The ceremony was brief, perfunctory. A judge read the legal requirements, they exchanged simple gold bands, the diamond was too valuable for daily wear, Alexander had explained, and then it was done. You may kiss the bride, the judge said. Isabella's eyes widened. She'd forgotten about that part. Alexander leaned down, his hand cupping her cheek gently. His lips brushed hers in a kiss so soft it was barely there, over in seconds. But in those seconds, Isabella felt electricity shoot through her entire body. Her heart hammered against her ribs. When Alexander pulled back, his blue eyes seemed darker, more intense. "Congratulations, Mrs. Stone," he murmured. Mrs. Stone. Isabella Martinez was gone. In her place stood Isabella Stone, wife of a billionaire, playing the role of her life. They signed the marriage certificate and left City Hall through a side entrance where Alexander's driver waited with a black Mercedes. As they slid into the back seat, Alexander handed Isabella a glass of champagne from the car's mini bar. "To a successful partnership," he said, raising his own glass. "To revenge," Isabella added, clinking her glass against his. "A new identity." The next morning, Isabella stood outside Stone Industries headquarters, a gleaming skyscraper of glass and steel that dominated the city skyline. She wore her best business suit, a navy blue ensemble that made her feel professional and confident. Alexander's assistant, a sharp-eyed woman named Linda Chen, met her in the lobby and escorted her to the top floor. They entered a massive office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the entire city. Alexander sat behind an enormous desk made of dark wood and chrome. He wore a charcoal gray suit with a silver tie, and he looked even more handsome in daylight than he had in the garden shadows. "Isabella. Right on time." He gestured to a chair across from his desk. "Please, sit." 3 lawyers sat along the side wall, each with thick folders of documents. For the next 2 hours, they explained every detail of the marriage contract. Isabella read every word carefully, asking questions whenever something seemed unclear. Everything Alexander had promised was there. $15 million. Help starting her company. Separate living quarters. A clear exit strategy after 1 year. There was also a confidentiality clause. Neither party could discuss the true nature of their arrangement with anyone else. To the world, they would be a couple who fell in love quickly and married in a whirlwind romance. "One more thing," Alexander said after Isabella signed the last page. He pulled a small velvet box from his desk drawer and opened it. Inside was the most beautiful ring Isabella had ever seen. A stunning emerald-cut diamond surrounded by smaller diamonds set in platinum. It was elegant, sophisticated, and probably worth more than most people earned in a lifetime. "Give me your hand," Alexander said. Isabella extended her left hand, trying to ignore the trembling in her fingers. Alexander slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. "How did you know my size?" Isabella asked. "Messages from acquaintances pretending to care but really just wanting gossip." 3 messages from her mother saying, "Why did you make a scene? You embarrassed the family." Nothing from Marcus. Nothing apologizing, nothing explaining. Just silence. At 11:47 p.m., Isabella picked up her phone and dialed the number on the card. Alexander answered on the first ring. "Yes?" "I have conditions," Isabella said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "I'm listening." "First, I want 15 million, not 10. I'm worth more than your initial offer." A pause. Then a low chuckle. "Agreed. What else?" "Second, I want it in writing that you'll help me start my own marketing company after the year is up. Connections, seed money, everything needed to make it successful." "Done. Continue." "Third, if you humiliate me the way Marcus did, if you cheat or betray me during our arrangement, you pay me double and I get to tell the real story to the press." "Fair. Anything else?" Isabella took a deep breath. "Fourth, we have to at least try to be friends. I won't spend a year living with someone who treats me like a business transaction every second. In private, we treat each other with respect and kindness." Silence stretched for several seconds. Then Alexander said quietly, that's the first demand that actually surprised me. Most people in this situation would want the opposite, to keep maximum distance. I'm not most people. No, Alexander agreed. You're not. I accept all your conditions. Can you meet me tomorrow morning at 9? My lawyers will have the contracts ready. I'll be there. Isabella? Yes? You made the right choice. The line went dead. Isabella sat in the darkness of her apartment, wondering if she'd just made the best decision of her life or the worst. Only time would tell. I'll have my lawyers draw up a contract, but here are the basics. We marry immediately. You live with me in my penthouse for 1 year. We attend social events together and maintain the appearance of a loving marriage in public. After 1 year, we divorce quietly. You'll receive $10 million as compensation for your time, plus a full recommendation letter that will open any career door you want. $10 million. Isabella's mind reeled. That kind of money would change her entire life. She could start her own marketing firm, be independent, never rely on anyone again. And in private? Isabella asked carefully. What would you expect from me? Privacy, discretion, and companionship. Nothing physical unless you want it. Alexander's expression remained professional. Separate bedrooms. Separate lives when we're not in public. Think of it as roommates who put on a show for the cameras. Isabella's head spun. This was insane. Absolutely insane. You don't marry a stranger, even if he is a billionaire offering you revenge and $10 million. But what did she have to lose? Marcus had destroyed her plans for the future. Her stepfather would probably fire her from the company now to please Vanessa. Her mother had never stood up for her against her stepfather's favoritism. She had nothing. Alexander Stone was offering her everything. I need time to think, Isabella said. You have until midnight. Alexander stood, pulling a business card from his pocket. My private number. Call me with your decision. He walked away, disappearing into the shadows of the garden. Isabella sat alone, the business card burning in her hand like a live coal. The deal is struck. Isabella didn't go back to the engagement party. Instead, she went home to her small apartment, took a long shower, and sat on her couch staring at Alexander Stone's business card for 3 hours. Her phone buzzed constantly. Messages from friends asking if she was okay. I must be married within 6 months of his death, or the shares go to my cousin Derek, who will run the company into the ground within a year. Why would your grandfather make such a strange requirement? He believed marriage makes a man stable, responsible. He wanted to ensure I had a partner before giving me full control. Alexander's jaw tightened. I have 3 months left. I've been searching for the right person to enter a marriage of convenience with me. And you think I'm that person? Because I'm desperate and heartbroken? Isabella felt anger rising in her chest. No. Alexander leaned forward, his intense gaze pinning her in place. I think you're that person because you're intelligent, capable, and you have every reason to want revenge on the people who hurt you tonight. Isabella's breath caught. Revenge? Imagine, Alexander said softly, his voice like velvet, walking back into that ballroom tomorrow as Mrs. Alexander Stone. Imagine the look on Marcus's face when he realizes he threw away a woman who landed one of the most eligible billionaires in the country. Imagine your half-sister's jealousy when she understands that while she got Marcus, you got someone infinitely better. The image sent a thrill through Isabella's body. She could see it clearly, Marcus's shocked expression, Vanessa's rage, her mother's regret for always favoring her stepdaughter over her biological child. But why would you choose me? Isabella asked. You could have any woman. Models, actresses, socialites who were already part of your world. Because they would want it to be real, Alexander said simply. They would fall in love, expect forever, demand things I cannot give. You, on the other hand, have just had your heart broken. You won't make the mistake of falling in love with me. We can have a clean business arrangement. What would this arrangement entail exactly? Alexander pulled out his phone and began typing. Don't apologize. It's a fair question. Alexander's lips curved into a small smile. Marcus's father and I have business dealings. I came out of professional courtesy. He paused. Though I must admit, the entertainment tonight exceeded my expectations. Isabella flinched. You think my humiliation is entertaining? Not at all. Alexander's expression turned serious. I think Marcus Thornton is a fool who doesn't deserve you. And I think your half-sister is a snake who will eventually turn on him too. The blunt assessment surprised Isabella. You don't even know me. I know enough. Alexander turned to face her fully. I know you've been managing the marketing department at your stepfather's company for 3 years. I know you increased their revenue by 40% through innovative digital strategies. I know you donated $20,000 to children's hospitals last year despite earning a modest salary. I know Marcus took credit for several of your ideas and presented them as his own to his father. Isabella stared at him, shocked. How do you know all that? I told you. I make it my business to know people. Alexander's blue eyes studied her intently. Isabella Martinez, I have a proposition for you. The stranger's offer. Isabella's heart raced. There was something dangerous about the way Alexander looked at her, something that made her feel both terrified and excited. What kind of proposition? Marry me. Isabella jumped up from the bench, taking several steps back. What? Are you insane? We just met. Alexander remained seated, completely calm. I'm perfectly sane. Sit down, Isabella. Let me explain. Against her better judgment, Isabella slowly sat back down, keeping more distance between them this time. This better be good. 3 months ago, my grandfather passed away, Alexander began. He left me controlling shares of Stone Industries, but with one condition. She burst through the hotel side entrance into a small garden courtyard, gasping for air. The cool night breeze hit her tear-stained face. She collapsed onto a stone bench, burying her face in her hands as sobs racked her body. How could Marcus do this? How could Vanessa? They had both betrayed her in the cruelest way possible. Rough night? Isabella's head snapped up. A man stood a few feet away, half hidden in shadows cast by the garden's ornamental trees. He stepped into the moonlight, and Isabella's breath caught. He was stunning. Tall, easily over 6 feet, with dark hair styled perfectly, sharp cheekbones, and eyes so intensely blue they seemed to glow in the darkness. He wore a custom-tailored black suit that probably cost more than her car. Everything about him screamed wealth and power. I'm sorry, Isabella said, wiping her tears hastily. I didn't mean to intrude on your space. You're not intruding. This is a hotel garden. Public space. He moved closer, his movements graceful and controlled like a predator. You're the jilted bride, aren't you? Isabella Martinez? You know who I am? Isabella asked, surprised and humiliated. Of course he knew. Everyone in that ballroom now knew her shame. I make it my business to know everyone at events I attend. He sat down on the bench beside her, maintaining a respectful distance. Alexander Stone. I own Stone Industries. Isabella's eyes widened. Stone Industries was one of the largest conglomerates in the country, with interests in technology, real estate, and finance. Alexander Stone was famous for being ruthlessly intelligent, mysteriously private, and devastatingly handsome. Forbes had called him the Wolf of Wall Street with a conscience. What is someone like you doing at Marcus Thornton's engagement party? Isabella asked, then immediately regretted her rudeness. I'm sorry. That was inappropriate. The worst day of her life. Isabella Martinez stood frozen in the doorway of the grand ballroom, her champagne glass slipping from her trembling fingers and shattering on the marble floor. The sound echoed through the space, but nobody noticed. All eyes were fixed on the stage where her fiancé Marcus stood with his arm wrapped around her half-sister, Vanessa. "I'm sorry to announce this so suddenly," Marcus said into the microphone, his voice smooth and unapologetic, "but I must follow my heart. Vanessa and I have fallen deeply in love. The wedding scheduled for next month will still happen, but the bride has changed." The crowd gasped. Some looked scandalized, others excited by the drama. Isabella felt her knees buckle as whispers erupted around her. "Isn't that Isabella? The original bride? Poor thing. Replaced by her own sister. I heard Vanessa is pregnant. That's why Marcus chose her. How humiliating." Isabella's vision blurred with tears. This engagement party was supposed to celebrate her upcoming marriage to Marcus Thornton, heir to the Thornton media empire. She had loved him for 3 years, supported him through his father's illness, helped him build his business connections. And now, in front of 200 guests including her mother and stepfather, he was throwing her away like garbage. Vanessa smiled smugly from the stage, her hand resting on her flat stomach in an exaggerated protective gesture. She caught Isabella's eye and mouthed, "I win." Isabella turned and ran. She pushed through the ballroom doors, her silver gown trailing behind her like liquid moonlight. Her designer heels clicked frantically against the hotel corridor's polished floors as she fled toward the exit. She couldn't breathe. Her chest felt crushed by an invisible weight.